listeners, welcome to Kyle and Cody's Called Cinemacast. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Cody.
Week 1 of getting stuff on the YouTube channel. Hopefully this one will be day and day, unlike Indian Horse. There's a couple of reasons for that, but I was going to upload something else instead. But one of the video editors, I've had such a pain in the ass with this. I got a new video editor because I figured it would be better. It takes like 40 minutes to confirm audio on it. It takes the very simple job of getting rid of putting the podcast in with the static images, which Audra Balion provided. Thank you, Audra. And that's a simple job, but it takes 40 minutes to confirm the audio, so it's not easy to do. So yeah, that's an issue I was having. And my other software is just pixelating the artwork for some reason, no matter what setting I use. I have no idea why that would happen. So I'm in the process of downloading yet a third video editing software to do this job properly, which should have been really freaking easy.
What are you running for video editing software?
Well, I ran Hit Film Express was taking 40 minutes to confirm audio, which is unacceptable. And then the other one's just like, what's it called? Free Film something, which free software, but still those are weirdly obtuse little limits to my ability they're placing on me.
Yeah, which I don't fully understand how, why aren't you just using Windows Movie Maker or whatever?
I think I have it.
But you have a Windows computer.
Yeah, I don't think I have it. It's I just search Windows Movie Maker. I think I still have to. I have Windows Media Player. No, I don't have it. Yeah, I guess I think I need to download it if I wanted it. VSDC Video Editor was the one that was pixelating my artwork. But yeah, so that's going. I should have this sorted out by next week when I upload this. So this week we're doing the second episode of our sub theme of the season, book adaptations of books that never should have been made into film, or books that never should have been adapted into film. Adaptation, I don't know. How did I phrase this the last time? I always forget. I should be better at this by now. Bad book, the worst book adaptations that never should have happened is the basic theme that we're doing. Last one was Cat in the Hat. That was pretty bad. I think this is worse. This is a worse film, in my opinion.
At least Cat in the Hat had some entertainment value.
Yeah, it did.
This kind of falls flat in every, way possible.
So what we're doing is the 1981 adaptation of Tarzan of the Apes. If you can call it that. This has very little to do with the original novel, though a lot of them don't. That's not like a big secret. Like, most adaptations are very different from the novel, mostly because the novel doesn't really, at least the first novel doesn't really have a final, a big climax or whatever. It's just like the book ends with Tarzan getting out of the jungle to go find Jane, and him meeting Jane again is the big ending moment of it. I think they escape something, and Tarzan escapes something with this French soldier, and that eventually leads him to going to America to meet Jane. So yeah, this is the 1981 adaptation. It's almost certainly the worst one. I don't know if there's anything else in the running. I'm trying to watch a few of them because I have a soft spot for the concept of Tarzan, if not for the actual content of the movies and the books. I do not care for the book very much, honestly, but I certainly don't care for Edgar Rice Burroughs very much. I did try reading his other book, John Carter of Mars, and just put it down for being oddly enough, in comparison to Tarzan of the Apes, too racist, which is a weird thing if you've ever read the Tarzan of the Apes book, because that book is very racist. But I put down the book that was about like fictional people for being too racist, which, okay, first of all, it does get in, like, it takes that first chapter to put in like some racism against like First Nations peoples, like right at the beginning. So when I figured that would be, and what it was, as part of it was, I figured that would be my escape from some of the racist elements of Tarzan of the Apes. But yeah, didn't get that at all, because like you open up John Carter of Mars, and it's like, oh yeah, he's getting chased down by evil First Nations people that are just going to kill him as soon as look at him, and then he goes on to the Martian planet and just like talks all sort of like how in Star Trek when you like meet a new alien race and it's like Picard or whoever is just like, oh yeah, this is actually kind of interesting how these people operate. They have like a interesting culture, and like it's all like this isn't like Star Trek's not perfect for this, but there's a bit of respect for other people's cultures. It's like, oh hey, these people are different than us, and that's kind of, and that's interesting, and it's like, you're something you want to explore. You want to explore these different worlds, which isn't something that's present in John Carter of Mars, because it's just like, oh, these people suck and they're not as good as white uh, Western American people, because they're just a doomed civilization and they're so stupid compared to us Americans. It's like, fuck off. This is not what anyone comes to science fiction for, is to like go to another, to make up like a fictional race for you to be racist against. It's so bad. I got through maybe like 4 chapters of it, or 6 chapters of it or something, which is the same because I bought it's a nice book I bought. I just have no desire to read any more of it. But geez, I haven't sold anyone on the concept that I like the concept of Tarzan of the Apes, have I? I've just talked.
No, was it? Which is really ironic because this is Richard Harris.
Yeah, Richard Harris is in this. He plays I don't know that he's a doctor in this, but the Dr. Porter character? James, that's actually a thing. I forgot to look this up, but Jane, what's Jane's last name in the book?
Is it not Porter?
Yeah, it's Porter, and in this it's Parker.
Parker.
Well, in the book it's Porter.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, in the book it's Porter, I think. Yeah, and then they changed the Porters' names to Parker in this, which is odd. Which I don't know why they did that. There's some weird, I mean, like I said, Tarzan adaptations are like all very different from the books, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But there's always just these weird arbitrary changes. I think she's supposed to be, maybe she's supposed to be British in this too, which is weird. She doesn't have like an accent or anything. Richard Harris certainly doesn't have like a British accent, certainly not a strong one. Who is Richard Harris American? No, oh, he's Irish. Yeah. No. Yeah, yeah, he's just got kind of like a light Irish accent. So I guess Bo Derek certainly doesn't have one. But yeah, Bo Derek plays the lead in this. This 1981 Tarzan of the Apes is actually a Jane story for the most part. Tarzan's barely features in it, partially because the actor who played Tarzan, who was going to play Tarzan, broke his ankle, and then the stuntman had to do most of the work. But the stuntman had to go for allegedly had to go for a appendectomy or something, and wasn't able to go on set. So they got another stuntman to do it, Miles O'Keefe, and he's the one that plays Tarzan in this. Miles doesn't have any speaking lines in this. He's just eye candy. But I do mean eye candy. This movie is very horny. You can tell they're kind of
By what standards is this a horny movie? Would
Well, I
you?
mean, they are just like the last third of the movie anyway is very horny. They're just about like trying. It's like Bo Derek spends half of it like at least in a wet t-shirt, if not naked, and it's like there's definitely scenes where there's like, oh yeah, we're just staring at each other like getting ready to have sex for half of it. It's not a good movie. This isn't well
Like,
set
but
up. I'm not saying it's well
yeah,
set up, but it's
but this, in my opinion, is 1981 tame.
good. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's kind of like it's trying to be vaguely like erotica kinda, but it's not really succeeding. I don't know. It's not very good. It's very like all the characters are all seem like very sexualized, and there's not a lot of clothing in the movie. Period. This is very much going. The African actors in this movie are very much going by this National Geographic cover sort of thing where everyone's naked, which I mean there's some realism to that, some not, but it I don't trust this movie to be portraying these people authentically whatsoever. So I'm very skeptical of it. Like cuz this isn't like set in a particular part of Africa or something. It's filmed in Sri Lanka. But yeah, it's very few Tarzan material is very authentic to its African setting, so I don't know. Somewhat intentionally, and sometimes it's not actually taking place in Africa, so where it's like off of Africa and not technically on the continent. Yeah, this is a bad movie. This also was nominated for like worst picture at the second Razzies. It lost to Mommy Dearest. Go check out that episode, which we did. And
Apparently, we did.
yeah, this should have won that award. This is way worse than Mommy Dearest, even if you're really ungenerous to that movie. Like I don't think this is better than better than Mommy Dearest by any metric. So yeah, it's directed by John Derek, Bo Derek's husband. Yeah, Bo Derek's husband. Bo and John are like a team. They would at least for a while there be refused to work with anyone else. Bo refused to work on any film where John wasn't the director, which ultimately got their Avengers film canceled. So
I mean, yuppie.
what's that?
I mean, yuppie.
Yeah, no,
Like, is that not a good thing?
no, that's a bad
Do
thing.
you do you justifiably think that
No, um,
that
if someone else would have directed it, it might have been okay. But they were gonna make. For those of you who don't know that story, they were gonna make an Avengers in the '80s with Bo Derek leading the team as Dazzler of all people, because that was their big thing at that time. This was also like that was something they were also pitching during the disco boom, which wasn't a thing anymore. So yeah, that was a thing they were going to do, and it never ended up materializing because Bo wouldn't work with another director, and they had picked her to be Dazzler. So, and then the movie just fell apart. So I think Movie Bob does a good little video on that. Might have been cool in cheesy sort of way, but who knows? Anyway, what was I talking about? Why I like Tarzan despite all the shit I talked about in the first 10 minutes of this review. Like I think Tarzan has like potential to be kind of like an interesting story at least. I don't think it's as hard to make woke as like you would think it is. I think you can do things with it. I think the very recent film, the Alexander Skarsgård film, the Legend of Tarzan did a semi reasonable job at that. That was a pretty good movie actually. I might do it on the show at one point because it seems underappreciated. I think it was a bomb. We usually do at least one of those a season or something, so I can swing it. Maybe season 4. I don't know if I have time this season. That was a big. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I think you can address it in a way that like resolves some of the issues you have with the original novel, but this doesn't really seem to do that pretty well. It really just seems to be exploiting the scenery and like buying into this white explorer myth, or great white explorer myth, you could say. But I don't think, though. I mean, it's not like the biggest. I feel like if that was the only thing, we could at least like make a watchable movie where this is just like not very good at all. Like I think I was talking to you about this last when we recorded the last one. I was like, yeah, I mean, this is the only thing good about this is like you see Bo Derek naked for half of it, and that's like I don't think I can give this an extra point for that. That just feels wrong. But that's the only positive thing I could possibly say about this. Yeah, Tarzan. This is, again, the another thing we mentioned. This is a Jane movie more than anything. If you had named this movie like Jane Bride of the Manape or something, this would have been like that would have also been like a perfectly reasonable title, because this is very much Jane's story, which is a valid approach to the Tarzan mythology, which hasn't been done as often, but I think you could definitely get something that like some people would like. Unfortunately, this movie is written by two men and directed by a man, so yeah, I don't see this like being made to apply to like market to a female audience, which I think a Jane's version of the story could very easily do well. Like you could easily do this as like just a straight romance with like action elements, and that would have turned out okay for at least some people. But yeah, because like the action scenes on this aren't good at all. They're objectively boring to watch and incomprehensible. They're all done in like a slow motion effect, so you don't with like blur and like images like superimposed over top of each other, so you can't see what's going on for the most part. And it takes forever. And the shot this movie also has a cinematography problem with like exclusively using like wide shots in cases where like a close up would be a lot more effective, and also just having faster storyboarding. I don't know.
Did we talk on the budget here?
Oh, no, we didn't. Box office was like $36 million. Budget is 6.5 or 8 million. So that's a turnover. So it made
Mhm.
money. Yeah, it's not good at all. It is considered to be in some circles to be one of the worst films ever made. I can't really argue. I am putting it down there. So, at least for the show. There's one of the other characters is a character named Holt, who's not featured in the novel at all. He's original for this, I think. Anyway, this is reportedly a remake of. Oh no, Holt's a character in previous things. Yeah, he's a recurring character in the Tarzan films. Yeah, he was portrayed by Neil Hamilton in Tarzan the Ape Man in 1932. Yeah, he's meant to be. He's like a typically bland, like a just the bland alternate love interest by to in regards to like a love. He's like a love triangle character. He's in considered to be like a parallel to the novel character William Cecil Clayton, who's also like a initial love interest to Jane Porter in the books. Though William is more antagonistic to Tarzan, which Holt is not portrayed as. Holt's a pretty boring character. He's just a photographer in this. He has a gun and whatnot, but he's not particularly useful. What else do we got to talk about? Oh yeah, this film was contested by the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, who pretend to own the rights to make Tarzan movies. Sort of. They claim to own the name Tarzan, but I mean the original novel's in public domain, so I don't see how you can like copyright a character from a public domain book. You certainly can't use all the novels in the series and make. I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate to make a straightforward sequel, but I don't see why everyone can't just make a Tarzan movie like you make a Sherlock Holmes movie. I think it's just that Edgar Rice Burroughs is like very just on the cusp of before as those copyright laws are being nailed down and before Disney lobbied to have them lengthened so that they can have more rights to their copyright stuff. But no, I don't entertain Edgar Wright the Burroughs estates like right to the Tarzan mythology really, because yeah, it's not always all that good. It was also partially because another studio was working on another Tarzan film, which would eventually be released as Greystoke, the Legend of Tarzan, a 1984 movie, which is something. So, yeah, I think we'll get into the plot. Do we have anything else?
Not really, no.
Yeah, yeah, we can talk. I think we'll do more Tarzan stuff in the future because I like talking about like Tarzan stuff, and with a bit more stuff we can talk about. Okay, so the movie opens with a voiceover of some really posh British sons of bitches. Has nothing to do with anything other than maybe imply like a rivalry between James Parker and these people who are allegedly a member of this country club that James Parker is a part of. And you could perhaps intuit that because Richard Harris is Irish, that James Parker would also be Irish in this, and that would be kind of like a prejudice thing, and that they'd have like a rivalry from that. But I mean, that's a lot. He's not even mentioned in the voiceover except in passing because the voiceover is about Jane. It's about talking about how she's really beautiful and they want to know, and the creepy old British guys want to know what she looks like. And it just gives us the basic prompt of what she's doing. She's going to Africa to go find her father, James Parker. The movie's also taking place in 1910, which is about when the novel was published. We don't necessarily do enough with the idea that Tarzan's like a 1910s hero. I don't feel like that's always done enough because he's kind of like in this space where like they treat him like he's someone that you'd be related to in explorers. So they kind of a lot of people have this temptation to set him in a more Victorian time or a more 1800s y time so they can relate it to that era where a bunch of white guys are going to explore Africa. But I kind of like the 1910s angle a bit more. It's there's a lot you can do with that. But yeah, so as this voiceover goes to an end, we see Jane being rickshawed through a fairy town in Africa. She catches a ferry with some sailors. She pays them. She as she's in the cabin of the boat, the sailors attempt to come down after doing some drinking to presumably assault her, and she ends up shooting them. Which something we see off screen because this movie is allergic to action scenes. Explains the slow motion. Really, it's just an allergic reaction. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, we get, and this is to seemingly imply that Jane's really rough and tumble, and that she can do some she can act on her own, that she's a active character in the book and the story. I don't know that the rest of the certain large parts of the rest of the narrative don't support that idea. She gets kidnapped quite a bit. She only shoots. She has a gun later, which she shoots, but not add anybody or to do any effect. There's certainly room for like a badass Jane, but this doesn't seem like it is. Like, I guess they didn't intend for her to be like self-reliant, but this is, I guess, implying that she can handle herself, or that she'll do what she has to defend herself, despite a more presumably softer upbringing. I don't know. It's none of this is very good characterization. We also never see this gun again, which is weird. When she shoots a gun later in the movie, it's a different gun that James gives her. And after the gunshot, we get a cut to the unreadable logo of this movie, which is just Tarzan of the Apes in really big letters. That's just exposing a painting of African animals, so you can't read it. It's very hard to read. We cut to the next scene, where we've seen that Jane has recruited some children to pilot the boat for her. Seems to be. We don't see what the
That's
in between there, but it seems like she's hired these children to pilot her boat. I don't know. Is there
seems
another?
against like current slave labor standards, but
I mean, I presume she paid them.
yeah, but that's not the point. Whether or not they were paid, what were their like living wages? How well were they paid is the question.
Well, it is established that she's quite wealthy, so I imagine she could, and she was willing to pay these other sailors pretty well. So I imagine she at least treated the children fairly. I have no indication that she's a monster, but yeah, there's no. These children don't get any speaking lines. Barely any of the African actors get any speaking lines. James Parker's partner, romantic partner, has some lines. A couple of the expedition crew have lines, but like single lines. There's not a lot of money there. So that's feels
Hmm.
weird, and I'm not certain of this, but it seems like the guy who plays the leader of the bad guy at the end of the movie is actually a white guy in blackface. Because the only credit I can find is for a white. The only actor I can find who relates to that is like a white guy who's a wrestler. So I don't know. I don't know. Were you certain of that? Could you tell?
Sorry, what?
Yeah, because like the actor they're showing in, the guy at the end of the bad guy at the end of the movie. I'm pretty sure that's a white guy in blackface or in like really heavy paint. I don't know, which is possible. But that's not explained if he is just supposed to be a white guy. They also named the character the Ivory King. That's either a reference to him being white, or a reference to the fact that he has a bunch of elephant ivory around. So I'm not entirely sure which one's true. I can't confirm that for sure, but I think it's the case. Which, yeah, it kind of sucks because it seems like, because it's one of the few, the Tarzan expedition crew, or the James Parker's expedition, isn't always accompanied by black characters in any of these adaptations, and especially in the novel, they just have a African American maid who goes with them, who's a badly written character, and it's a pretty racist caricature given it's given the time, but still. So they could have made a lot better use of the African characters, I feel. Tarzan of the Apes does an all right job. It's one of the few we're going to do a review of that at some point, but that's one of the few Tarzans, I think, where they make use of the Africans as like actual characters, whereas like this, none of them talk, and I don't trust any of these costumes to be authentic to any sort of period. So, yeah. we do get shown, like, at very least a diversity of African culture, but I don't know if that's like any of it's like drawn from anything authentic really, because like you start in a kind of like coastal community with a lot of with a bit more Western technology and whatnot, or quote unquote Western technology. Africans have boats. It's not that weird. And then you get into the James Parker's expedition crew, which is made up of like him, Holt, and then a local African tribe of some sort. And then the enemies of the movie are this really heavily painted tribe of people that spend their time kidnapping the members of the expedition with no rhyme or reason, I'll add. But we'll get into that a bit more. We get our first while they're going down the river. We get our first scene of Bo Derek naked, of many, where she skinny dips off the boat. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think I've said all I can say about like Bo Derek being naked for half of this. They end up at Doctor Parker. I don't actually. Yeah, I don't know that he's a doctor, but James Parker's camp. Who James Parker's revealed to be a real weirdo, which Richard Harris is good at playing weirdos. So, but I don't feel it's he's trying to be a classical style character in the line of like Captain Ahab or something, but he's not succeeding because I don't know, they're improvising it in the modern day, which is difficult to do. I mean, it's certainly nothing like it can be done because like Khan from Star Trek Wrath of Khan, which is a very contemporary film to this, is does a very good job of mimicking that classical literary feel with him, but Richard Harris isn't pulling it off here. He recognizes Jane, first referring to her as Elizabeth, and which is Jane's mother, who doesn't appear in any Tarzan adaptation to my knowledge, unless there's some of the cartoons which I haven't seen.
Have you not seen the cartoons of?
Well, I've seen some of them. I've seen the Disney one. I got the one of the newer ones loaded up on Prime Video. I just need to watch it, and I just haven't seen all of them. But I've seen the Disney one, which is all right. One of the better ones, I think. Certainly better than this. Um, I do have. I don't have too many issues with it. Nothing worth really mentioning here. But James Parker. I keep trying to call him Doctor Parker because he's a doctor in the novel, but in this he's just like an explorer. Which is yeah, this is a adjustment. James Parker's novel equivalent is Archimedes Porter, who's a scientist going to study the local flora and fauna. So that's why I'm confused, and he's not really doing that in this, which is yeah, it's a change from the book. He's not an explorer so much in that as a scientist. The explorer character is more covered by Clayton, who's more into the hunting and whatnot. But anyway, he's really insistent that they brought his cannon, which which just to me seemed like just like a cliche white colonialist thing to bring on an expedition, because it's like, oh yeah, this is highly impractical, like
Yeah.
cannon. Turns out what they're using it for is they're using it as a grappling gun because they're
Mhm.
going to end up at this place that has a big cliff edge, and they use the cannon to use it as a grappling gun. So that's what makes sense. He just really likes his cannon, which is fair. So it's not as silly as it initially seems. Although it's not it's not like treated as the silly thing it's maybe supposed to be given the plot of the movie. Yeah, he's more excited for the cannon than he is for Jane, but he's ran out into the water to meet their boat, pantless. He's just in like his nightshirt. He's kind of implied to have and forgive the parlance, but have gone native but not really. So I don't know what the point of all this is. He's in a romantic relationship with a woman who an African woman who's presumably from this tribe who they just call Africa. Which, come on, you couldn't have figured out a name for this woman? Like, what? You're too much of a dumb white guy to pronounce an African name? Jesus, just look it up for 5 seconds. It's not that complicated to find an African name. I realize Google doesn't exist yet, but still.
This is the 1980s. This is like pretty unexcusable for the fact that like this isn't like black and white pictures in the 1930s or whatever.
Which is part of the thing. Like, the medium of Tarzan should have Tarzan stuff should have like advanced more than it has, and it's sad to see like this failure to go past its initial flaws so badly. And this is especially bad because this is like
Hmm.
one of the problem like this has an opportunity to be like a movie that explores Tarzan and also explores like more of his relationship with the people of like the native people of Africa, and they don't do it. And there's certainly potential. Like Tarzan of the Apes does it quite well, where they recontextualize that African tribe who is antagonistic toward Tarzan in the books, and they really humanize that group while still keeping them as like at least antagonists for like a portion of the story. And like, because you can like a lot of this stuff, you can just ditch the problematic elements and be sort of better off. It's not too necessarily hard. This movie doesn't, at very least, doesn't portray the people as cannibals, which is okay. That's
Yeah.
better. I don't know like what the history of cannibalism in Africa is at all, so I can't say what the authentic portrayal of any of it theoretically would be. But um, yeah, no, it's just a weird thing, and they've, like I said, this can easily be done better, and they're not. And like they have the opportunity, they have a bunch of these African actors, and they could have paid one of them to have lines, like one of them to be like a major character. Because like here's another thing. um James Parker is using a largely African expeditionary force. These
Hmm.
expeditionary forces in real life made extensive use of, all around the world, these expeditionary groups made extensive use of native guides wherever they went, on all the continents. And that's never portrayed in these old colonialist narratives. And you can easily have a thing where just like, hey, here's the expert character who knows the area and is like taking away, like it takes away from James Parker's character, but I don't think you can honestly portray these events with any sort of authenticity without like either dumbing down the African characters, or exaggerating the capabilities of these white explorers. And they have a really good opportunity to do that, but the African characters are just extras to like carry stuff around. Which you could have done something neat with this. It wouldn't have been too hard. You just would have needed to pay these people to recite lines. But no,
Yeah.
we can't do that. Too expensive. You only quadrupled your budget on this movie. That's fine. I'm sure you couldn't have paid what the even like the $50,000. I don't know what it would cost, but it doesn't seem like it's nearly a dent in the budget they think that it would be. They're just being like needlessly cheap. But yeah, no, it's really badly done, and the villainous tribe doesn't have any lines whatsoever among them. They have a little bit of subtle motions. They're directed, but they're not given any lines. God forbid they utilize like some subtitles or something, or like have these people speak like an actual native language of the region, but that would place any of this, so they wouldn't be able to make up nonsense story, which you have to do anyway, because Tarzan's never been set in a particular part of Africa. It's like it's a made up part of Africa where it's like vaguely coastal but has like islands and whatnot and is mountainous and has sort of like not really gorillas but are gorillas, so it's in like mountains and whatnot. So it's in this fictional area, but you could just have one of them speak like a actual language. It wouldn't be so far off of the course. You could just say like, hey, this is just like slightly off the region of X territory. It's wouldn't be so hard to do. And it's even if they had just like picked a language at random, it wouldn't have been the worst thing. So they have supper later that night where Jane and James have an argument where Jane basically says in front of his calls out James in front of his entire crew, and it's just like, yeah, no, he abandoned me as a child and didn't come to my mom's funeral and didn't even check up on her properly. So, yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, they have a weird relationship that's kind of antagonistic. He tries some things to kind of be like something of a father, but he doesn't have like a very good characterization in this. I don't feel like there's a single moment that like unifies his character. I think the gist of it is that he left his mother left Elizabeth because he didn't want to be tied down, and he knew if he stayed he wouldn't have the nerve to go on these expeditions, which eh, I don't know. He's not really compelling. He's a bit of an
Seems like a
asshole.
cop out.
Yeah. No, I'm doing my best, but still. Oh yeah, Jane also fell in the water for some reason because they need to show another shot of Bo Derek in like a wet t-shirt. So yeah, we're introduced to Holt during this too. He's the photographer. Yada yada yada. Holt talks the world about James. He's very respectful of him. Um, this could maybe have been a thing to like spoil like his perception of James so they could perhaps have an argument later in the movie as he like slowly doubts her a bit more. But no, we can't have that. That might be interesting, so we got to keep it out of the movie. Jane has her boat leave her behind. I don't know if those children own that boat, to be honest. So that's kind of weird. I don't. She might have just given those children Noah's boat, in which case that's a decent enough payment, assuming they can properly sell the thing or use it. That might actually be like their business now. Maybe they're the new sailors. Maybe they sailed that boat till their ripe old age. I want to watch a movie about these kids. Is the end story of what I'm after here.
I just want to like this is like I don't know. This is like 20 minutes into this movie.
Yeah,
Like we've barely even scratched the surface. It's not that interesting.
no, we've spent like we also spent a half hour talking about Tarzan and whatnot before we started the plot. So
Regardless, what I'm saying is the plot moves way too slowly for this
yeah,
to
it
even be
does.
considered half a decent movie.
So yeah, she's had the boat leave her behind so that James has to take her on the expedition, which he's shows some resistance to, but like not a lot. I think he at least ends up enjoying having her around. So that's kind of nice. There's a few nice moments of them kind of reconnecting, which if that were maybe more of the
Yeah,
movie
because
and
that's
that
what I came for when we sat down to watch a Tarzan movie. Is Jane and her father reconnecting? That was definitely a part of the original Tarzan. At least the animated Tarzan movie had Phil Collins soundtrack in it. This has none of that.
So yeah, he also gives her a revolver, which he lies and says he got from Buffalo Bill. She doesn't really use it much. She briefly fires it later in the movie and like uses it as like a signal flare, sort of. Like she uses the noise to like as a signal, but it's not an indication that she does anything cool or badass. So they go on the expedition. There's a campfire talk where they try to give Jane a moment where she talks about wanting to be an adventurer and like her being jealous of men for getting to go on adventures and whatnot. Like I buy this as kind of like a complicated speech of like a 1910s woman who's like pre-suffragette period, but it's not like terribly like endearing. It's not like a big fanciful speech that like gives people hope. I don't think this would be like a moment where you could really sell the character, and it doesn't really do that. It at best sounds like something that someone would say in real life, which is something that's like kind of contradictory and weird sounding, but still, I don't. It doesn't really go as very well. They encounter a rogue elephant. No idea what the science is on that. I'm not an elephant expert or whisperer, but apparently James is, as he gets the elephant to leave them alone and be calm. Something that will be contrasted later when Tarzan just commands elephants, which says something? Question mark. At this point, they end up at their at part of their destination, which is just this giant fucking cliff face plateau, which apparently just goes on forever. Doesn't make much sense. We're shown this through like a big shot of like a camera through like binocular lens, which is terrible to look at. Really, it mutes the wonder of what we're seeing rather than encourages it. The scenes later where they're trying to climb up the cliff face and we get to see a lot of the cliff are like way better. They camp for the night, and we get to hear our first Tarzan howl. His iconic howl that he does, and they hear the and we get the explanation of what the rumors about Tarzan are, is that he's a white like a white half man half ape who's apparently really tall and is like infamous among the local tribes of for being like a very scary thing. The contrast to this in the book would be that Tarzan in the book kills a member of one of the local tribes like he kills a chieftain's son, and that's why kind of the local Africans kind of fear him, but that's not clarified in this. It's just like, oh, they know about him even though we don't know if they've been here a lot before. And most of the expeditionary force leaves out of fear, except for some who are paid extra and who are described as being less superstitious. I don't like this very much. I think, like, yeah, I don't think there's a real life equivalent to this. It's just like buying into settler, like, explorer narratives, which aren't very real necessarily. Like in real life, this is either being contrasted with white people ignoring like sacred sites so they can steal gold, or white people being morons who are stumbling into something that's dangerous because they think the locals are stupid. James Parker gives a big speech about how fear is good and how fear is the thing that birthed the first gods. It's dumb. They try to make him very iconic and interesting, but he's not. So yeah, they begin their climb of the plateau in the morning. James reveals that he's going off a ancient Egyptian map, which reveals this place on the map, and that he's looking for an inland sea. Okay, so a couple things. In real life, like these expeditions are just like mostly just some some native person just guiding them to some place where someone says they haven't been before, if they're or just making them wander out into the wilderness to find whatever. There's a proud tradition in like Mesoamerica of like native guys just like saying they can lead white explorers to gold, and then just going out into the wilderness, getting paid, and then coming back with nothing. But they've made their money, so it's okay because the white people don't know anything, so they don't know where the gold is, whether or not. So they get paid either way. They eventually find the inland sea, where they swim in it. Jane decides that she wants to take a bath in the sea. Are seas fresh water or salt water?
Isn't it in I think it depends on the sea, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, a great body of salt water. What defines a sea? In general, a sea is defined as a portion of the ocean that is partially surrounded by land, given that the definition there are about 50 seas. Yeah, I think it's generally salt water. But this would technically just be a really large lake, so it might be freshwater. Because it's not technically a sea. They might just be calling it that because it's a really big, really big lake. Which I don't know how there would be a really big lake in like the middle of Africa and that not be noticed on maps and not be like a big point where people settle. I guess it's on a plateau, but this is like a massive plateau then.
I was gonna say, like, isn't well, like every single body of water on the continent is always connected to something else, correct?
Yeah.
So how has nobody ever found this
Yeah.
inland sea if there's like all the water body of water is connected?
Yeah, again, this seemingly is just like a big lake on top of a plateau just in the middle of Africa that's like not on any maps, which is just like stretching a level of absurdity. Like you can find like quote unquote unmapped parts of Africa, but this is stretching credulity. Like you would absolutely have like parts of Africa that aren't like densely settled. That's probably a thing. Especially like even at least in 1910 or whatever, but or if you want to set the movie earlier, but still it's doesn't strike me as a good like world building choice. So, yeah, Jane decides she wants to take a bath in the sea. So she strips down and does some bathing and swimming and whatnot. When a lion shows up and just lets camping on the beach, so that the lion can presumably just eat her on her arrival back into the sea, and there's like waves pushing her back into the back toward the land, which she has to avoid. At this uh, at this point, Tarzan howls and runs onto the scene in like a big wide shot, so it doesn't look like he's going very fast, which is dumb. And you think, okay, yeah, this is going to be like a scene. He's going to save Jane from the lion somehow, and then they'll have like a lovey-dovey moment where they like make lovey-dovey eyes at each other for a bit, or failing that, knowing this movie, probably uh like sexually charged lances. But yeah, no, not exactly. Those would be the reasonable assumptions. No, he calms down the lion, which makes sense. That's the thing he can do sometimes, depending on the version of Tarzan you're doing. So he kind of calms down the lion, and as Jane gets closer to shore, he grabs her and tries to move her around, take her wherever, and then like he's very this is one of the rapier Tarzans, definitely. I imagine. I don't know if there's I can't say for sure if this is the rapiest Tarzan, but it's very much one of the like rapier professionally produced Tarzans. And there's no repercussions for any of this. She Jane is only scared of Tarzan in these moments where he is physically trying to grab her and take her somewhere she doesn't want to go. And every other point in the movie, she's just like totally on his side, which is a weird manifestation of Stockholm syndrome, if any, like at best. but I don't think that's how that works. I don't think that's how it's described it ever is how that works, but yeah, I don't know. It's not very well done. He does save her from the lion as like the lion tries to get on his taking Jane somewhere doesn't she doesn't want to go. He chases off the lion briefly. He keeps trying to get a hold of her, but he is eventually chased off when I guess James and Holt heard her screaming, and they go on and chase the man off with his guns with gunshots. And then we get our next scene where Jane's just like, he didn't hurt me, which is technically true in that he did not inflict physical injury upon her, but not in the sense that like a cop wouldn't have a word with Tarzan if he were to witness this event.
Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, not like we can't always trust cops to do the right thing, but yeah, legally speaking, he did commit an assault.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just not assault causing bodily harm. So yeah, so she defends him. And they could have done this scene way better. Like they could have still had this scene where like Tarzan tries to grab at Jane, and then James very much kind of overreacts in this scene. He like talks about how he's going to kill Tarzan and mount him on his wall, which is a weird thing to say about someone who is clearly an actual human being. Like they made a big talk about him being a monster earlier, but this is clearly just like a human person. They're not going to let you have that. Even in like the 1910s, maybe in like the 1810s or the 1870s, that's probably very passable. But 1910, you're maybe, but you're creeping in on the time where that's not exactly permissible.
Yeah, that's rough to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so she could have easily had a scene where she was just like, "Hey, look, don't I realize you did a bad thing, but don't like hunt him on like put him on like hunt him and stuff him on your wall. That's creepy and weird. He's clearly a human being."
I don't like the fact that like maybe 150 years ago you could just stuff a human, and on top of that probably own said human for his whole entire existing life. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wonder what the statue like. Okay, so he's like Tarzan is technically a white man, so that might mean the laws against like stuffing and mounting him would apply to him. But he's lived in Africa all his life. Would that then mean that he can be exploited like an African? I don't know. Because I mean, they keep mummies in like museums and whatnot, and that's weird, kind of, because that's like an actual
yeah, but
person's
like
dead body.
I think you have to go back to the origin stories of how Tarzan existed there, which they don't actually include at all in this movie.
Yeah, no origin story is given for Tarzan. He's just a random white guy running around in a loincloth. No explanation given.
Mhm.
Maybe they plan to do a sequel, but again, and then again, you can do that without like giving a full explanation. It's just like a little bit of a weird thing to take on face value. We don't see any of Tarzan's things he gets from his parents. We don't see like Tarzan's iconic knife that he gets from his father, or we don't see like his house that he grew up in, that he was born in, or any of that. So yeah, no explanation given to what Tarzan's deal is in this.
Which is like this is my whole argument for this movie. Why does this movie exist?
Yeah,
Who picked up the book? I don't know what book it's actually
Tarzan
called.
of the Apes
Tarzan, yeah,
is the name of it.
Tarzan of the Apes. Okay, so who picked up this book, read it, and was like, let's take all this source material, ignore all of it, and write a story from the white woman's perspective.
Yeah, there's two explanations for this. Like either the entire point of the movie is just to show Bo Derek naked for half of it, which okay, like and have it be like not considered porn, which okay, whatever. That's a weird thing to do with your wife, bro, but I mean, to everyone his own. I'm not like going to complain about that, but also, or the other option is that this is like supposed to be like a love story between Tarzan and Jane, and because you're telling it from Jane's perspective, you're going to be really immersing yourself in that perspective, perhaps to either explore Jane's character, which is something you can absolutely do. She can come across in a lot of Tarzan material as underdeveloped, so that's an entirely valid option. She is somewhat a point of view
Hmm.
character in some parts of the novel, but you can absolutely develop her more, make her like a more iconic character or whatever. Or you're trying to do maybe like a romance angle where like it's this steamy thing where like where like it's something for people to read about like getting seduced by this big strong ape man guy, which those are all valid response. This movie doesn't do a good job of any of those except for showing Bo Derek naked, which was the first one I said. Which again, that's whatever. That's you congratulations, you've made a movie that is best viewed by like looking up a compilation on Pornhub. Good for you.
Like it's oddly specific too,
Yeah.
and I mean, not like it's. How do I say this? Isn't, as I said earlier, it's very light nudity for the 1980s that I'm aware of,
I mean, it's lengthy is the thing.
and it's like one scene. Not even lengthy. She's clothed in half of it.
Yeah, but she's naked for a whole like fully naked
95%
for
of
a
it.
whole 30 minutes.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, she was like easily a 10 minute, like a 5 minutes, like at least a 5 minute scene where she's bathing in the ocean. For like the last 20 minutes of the movie where they're doing the finale. She's got like a wet t-shirt for like another 10 minutes. We get like glances that's like I think amounts to like another 2 minutes. So it's about half an hour at least, I think. It's not always like glamour
Okay,
shots,
but
but
like,
she is.
so that's completely counter to like, once again, just if you're gonna make a Tarzan movie, shoot the perspective from Tarzan.
Or at least do a good job of
Yeah,
Jane, which
way
they
more
don't do.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because like you can do that, they just didn't do a very good job. Like I defend a movie that does it from Jane's perspective. You can absolutely do a thing where like Jane has to like piece together the mystery of this mysterious ape man from the wilderness who's got like no discernible explanation to where he comes from, and they do that for like 20 minutes of like most of the movies, but she doesn't really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or here's a better idea: just stop doing Tarzan movies.
Yeah, I can't really sign off on that, but just because I do like some of the better ones, and I think you can make really good Tarzan movies, but they just don't because a
I
lot of people
don't
just like,
think you really can. It's kind of become an outdated thing,
oh, true,
regardless
true.
of how good the movie is in itself. It's just become like, for example, King Kong. They've done so many King Kongs, and I'm always like, oh, it's another King Kong movie. I will not go watch that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even think I've seen the first Kong movie.
Like the modern ones or like first period.
Probably like the most modern ones.
Skull Island.
I don't even think I've watched the Peter Jackson one. I think I've seen bits and pieces of Skull Island.
Skull
Um,
Island's. I appreciate Skull Island more that I've now that I've seen like the other half of that monster verse. I do kind of
mhm.
appreciate the direction they were going with that one. I didn't really find the characters in the latest two of those Godzilla verse movies to be particularly likable. Whereas the earlier two of those.
What do you mean by particularly like? What do you mean by particularly likable? They're monsters. Are you supposed to have like an emotional connection with them, or like, yeah,
So like okay, so here's I could go into a very complicated answer about this, but here's the basis of it. In Godzilla 2014, you have like Bryan Cranston and like his son, who's not a very good
sure.
actor, who's but still's all right. And then in Kong Skull Island, you have like Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, and like decent actors playing the human characters in those movies. And then in like King of the Monsters, it primarily revolves around this child and like her two parents who kind of suck, and then like the guy who plays Tywin Lannister just totally phoning it in. And then the most recent one, Kong versus Godzilla, it's not as bad, but those are, it still kind of has those really crappy characters, and you're like delving in on like something close to like Transformers territory, where like how those movies have like really annoying human characters.
What do you have against Sam Witwicky?
I'm sorry, do you not have something against Sam Witwicky?
No, I didn't hate Shia LaBeouf. I don't know. I haven't seen those since I was 15 or 16. Like if I went back and watched them, am I supposed to hate him?
I mean, he's like, okay, it's not just Shia LaBeouf either. Every character in that movie is like fucking annoying.
Like I hated
But
the parents.
on the on that, like coincidentally, those movies actually get worse after Shia LaBeouf leaves. Like I think four's almost certainly the worst movie of the Transformers.
Yeah, that's just saying a lot. I don't think I've watched past 4 because Shia LaBeouf left, so I stopped watching
Oh no,
it.
you'd think like, okay, Mark Wahlberg, he's maybe more likable. Not really. He's just buff. Like he's
Uh-huh.
buff Shia LaBeouf. That's all it is. Like I think like if you said okay, he's just
Sure.
Shia LaBeouf's character like aged up like 10 years, that's like okay, I buy that. I guess it's kind yeah, it's a
Okay,
shit.
that seems like a valid.
Yeah. Also like I hated that movie. I only went and like my dad wanted to see it, but so I ended up going with him, and it was like miserable. I've never been so close to walking out of a theater than watching Transformers 4. I didn't leave because TJ Miller died in it. So, and he was the most annoying character in that movie.
So when I I heard you say that the monsters didn't have enough personality for my liking. I just assumed you meant the actual like monsters. Like you didn't have emotional connection with King Kong.
No, I think the monsters are fine in those movies. It's the human characters that really took a downturn after. Because, like I said, Kong Skull Island, you get Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Hiddleston. Then you downgrade to like
Hmm.
kids, which fucking kids. No one likes
Yeah,
kids. Kids are bad. No offense to the
this is why you
child
don't have
audience of
kids.
this show.
I really hope there is no child out there listening to this, and if there is, like, please talk to your parents because you should not be listening to this. They
Yeah, so
need
turn
to
off the
take your
podcast,
iPad
Hayden. You're
away,
not
or
supposed to be watching this. Your dad says so.
I don't think I'd ever. I think I've showed him some bits and pieces of it because he asked about it, and I'm like, oh, here's some tame portions of this podcast, but besides that, no.
Anyway, where was I? So yeah, James proclaims he's going to kill Tarzan. We get our they continue the expedition, and we get our first glimpse of the locals, who are like painted peoples, who, and he's standing like really obvious in like the foreground of this shot, and like the characters don't see him despite the fact he's maybe 100 feet away, standing in a clearing, maybe like 30 degrees above them. Soon after Africa gets taken, they blame Tarzan for that, which is a fair argument, given that he tried to kidnap Jane. Jane speaks up for him, but yeah, they during the night they find one of the locals dead, which is kind of mysterious. It's implied that Tarzan killed him to protect the expeditionary group. Why though? I
Hmm.
don't know. I guess it's the implication is that he actually cares about Jane, but weird way of approaching that. Grab it like trying to kidnap this girl. That's very rapey of you, sir, Mister Greystoke. That's very improper. I think you should reconsider your actions as a proper English gentleman that you are.
What do you mean by Mr. Is Greystroke his last name?
Yeah, Tarzan's like birth name is John Greystoke. Like Baron John Greystoke,
According to what?
like the novel.
I really don't like it when people like. I know it's a title, but like, don't call yourself a baron. It makes you sound like an evil villain.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they are. Barons are villains. There's a reason for that.
I mean, yeah, but like, if I was watching like uh an old timey like Agatha Christie novel, like Murder on the Orient Express is like a good example of that. And somebody was named Baronet in it, I'd be like, yeah, that's a villain right there.
Yeah,
You
justifiably,
don't need to look any further.
because
Like,
they're servants. They're the direct low level perpetrators of the evils of feudalism. So yeah, they're evil.
yeah, but like there's that's a whole different class thing, is it not?
Yeah, but that's what being a baron is. You're a stooge of the feudal system.
Okay, but isn't there one up for or, like there's peasants, then there's serfs. Like like the serfs are like the one up of feudalism. I mean, there's other things on that stove that like
It's different from country to country.
okay.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, that's very different from country to country based on how that all works. But barons are like the guy. A baron would be like the mayor. So like if shit's going wrong in your township, you'd go beat up the mayor probably. So
But the mayor doesn't deserve that. Like, if there's something going wrong in your town, like there's clearly some other factors. Don't just beat up the mayor.
I don't know. That's not necessarily true.
Unless, unless the mayor's corrupt, then by all means you can beat him up. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, you're the way I look at it is like if I was like paying my water bill and my water bill was really high, I wouldn't just be like, well, time to just go perform an assault.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm also
Doesn't
not
really
like.
make much
Uh,
sense.
disclaimer: not endorsing terrorism. By the way, that could be. Uh, it, what I said could be it would be interpreted as such. Don't support your local baron, though. UK listeners.
I don't think that's a thing anymore, but
No,
uh,
eh,
even if it
you'd be
is,
surprised.
how many I guess yeah, titles still
I mean,
stand?
that's what the House of Lords is. I think partially.
Yeah, but you can buy lord titles now.
You buy them. That's not a really lordly thing to do.
Yeah,
You
you can
take what is yours. Damn it.
yeah, but you can buy lordships now.
Yeah, from the authority. Is that what? That's not. That's my point. You don't buy your way into prestige. You demand it. Did I fucking pay for my lordship? No. I just said I was lord, and then that a lord, and that makes it true.
that, that's not how that works.
It totally is. You just say you are one, and then
Okay, if you're the lord, then I'm the mayor of Virginia.
well, mayor's an elected position.
I don't think I have any refute to that. I don't know if you need to refute
Except
that.
if you're the
Is it
mayor of
though?
London. The mayor of London is appointed, I believe.
By who?
The prime minister of UK. I think I forget if it's the prime minister or the
Okay,
queen's the queen still. Anyway, moving on.
and we gotta stop that.
I mean that's what podcasts are, Cody. It's just like 40% content and like 30% trailing off. And then 30% ads from
As a
Casper
side note, just
mattresses.
please. I don't know who that is, and I would really love it if that was like actually sponsored by Casper mattresses, and that was like the best segue we've ever. But it's not because I don't know where the fuck Casper is that even a thing? Hello? I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not paying yeah, sorry, I hit the mute button. Yeah, no, we're not paying I'm not explaining what Casper is because they're not paying us to advertise for them. They make mattresses. That's all
Yeah,
you're getting.
that's completely
Yeah.
fair.
No, Casper, if you want us to describe what you are, you can pay us. We'll shill for certain
Or
people.
or we'll sit here and we'll wait until you start paying us and just talk shit about your mattresses until you change your mind. It's like reverse sponsorships.
Yeah. In case anyone wondering, we'd also don't we'll accept sponsorships, just not from anything involving gambling, microtransactions in video games, anyone we just don't fucking like, and I don't know, anything else we don't want to do ads for, just to get out of the way.
Antifa.
Does Antifa do ads?
I don't know.
No. Sort like
I keep on thinking about the TIFF wards, and the other day I called them the Antifa wards, and I'm like, wait, those are two very different things. And so
moving on. So they're doing the trek, and Jane goes to go fill her canteen, and Tarzan just Jason Voorhees her and just like takes her into the river in just like a moment. So he kidnaps her. Yep, he drags her off, puts her down somewhere. She threatens him with the revolver and fires off in his direction and scares him off. Kind of saying like, "Oh no, please don't leave." For some reason, I realized you kidnapped me and dragged me
you
through a
just
river and
shot at
dragged me.
him. Why?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make much sense.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, no, there's not much of an explanation for this. She gets away. She gets jumped upon by a constrictor snake, which Tarzan fights off in a really bad slow mo fight, which I described toward the beginning, where it's just like slow motion and also just like images placed on top of each other, so you can't see what's happening. He takes her. Tarzan beats up the snake and takes Jane again before he collapses in like a area, a clearing of some sort near water, and I guess this chimpanzee checks on him, which I guess the chimpanzees are his family in this one instead of gorilla, like pseudo gorillas. They're not really gorillas in the
Mhm.
novel. They're just like gorilla like.
Yeah, but like, I guess that could have been a chimpanzee. I'm pretty sure like in the last scene it might have been an
There's
orangutan,
also an
but I feel
orangutan.
like orangutans are more orange. Okay, so I'm not crazy. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you can't afford a gorilla, which is fair. Gorillas are probably harder to train, especially given the amount of work the chimps do. Like one of the chimps likes to mimic Tarzan walking with his hands behind his back, which is kind of cute. But yeah, Tarzan's unconscious, clearly because he got bit at some point. But even though I don't think constrictor snakes are venomous, you might end up bleeding from a constrictor bite, absolutely. But I don't know. An elephant comes to pick him up and take him to another area where they get a where him and or where Jane and him like hang out as Tarzan's still unconscious, and she kind of like nurses him back to health for a little bit. She admires like Tarzan's sculpted bod for a bit. You There's clearly a moment where she's like contemplating whether or not she wants to grab a handful, just like as she like runs her
Sure.
hand like right near his loincloth. And yeah, only now does she notice the snake bite, which is a dumb little thing. Tarzan gets up as she notices the snake bite. They end up sleeping in a tree, and she in the morning they hang out in the water, and she does a scene where she chews on a banana. I shit you not, that's a scene in this movie. She doesn't do the whole. I was half like concerned that she was going to do the thing where she shoves the banana down there down her throat just to prove something. I don't know. And she like she just Tarzan doesn't understand any language, so she's just talking out into the ether, and she says, um, "There's a line in there that's just like, you were wrong, James Parker. I'm still a virgin." Why is this a scene? This is really cringy. I don't know if I don't actually recall if James actually said she wasn't one. It'd be weird if he said something either way, if not entirely out of line for the time, but still.
This like you once again, Jane's characterization with her father in this movie kind of falls flat, and I don't know if it's on Bo Derek.
I think
He
it's
just
on the script
to me
writers,
they
honestly.
don't really kind of sell it. Why are you defending Bo Derek?
I don't know. I don't think she's really good. I just don't. I think the problems are like script related because it just the dialogue is really badly chosen.
So it's directly on Bo Derek's husband, is what you're saying.
Also, yes, John Derek, and
Okay.
also I guess the author's name is some guy named Goddard, something Goddard. I forget what it is.
Hmm.
He says he wrote the script in like 2 weeks, with another guy. So that's not great. During this little sequence, Tarzan eventually gropes her boob, which Jane is very excited about. Which I guess fair. She's like Tarzan's a really like sculpted man, I guess. Like I said, they could pull off this like really sexually charged version of the story if they wanted to. They're just not doing a very good job. Meanwhile, with the expedition, they've been trying to find Jane and also Africa. The locals end up attacking them. They only end up taking the white members of the expedition prisoner. Like I don't see any of the Africans in the canoes being dragged to the finale of the movie. Did you see any of them?
I don't think so.
No, yeah, I couldn't. I paid close attention because I had to watch this movie twice because I wasn't sure whether it would be good for the show when I first like thought of it.
Yes, you had to watch it twice to make sure it was good for the show.
Yeah, I didn't take notes the first time. Was the problem because I didn't know if I wanted to do it
Okay,
or not. I've been back and forth on what I wanted to do for this for the sub theme. To be honest,
sure.
yeah. So yeah, and I took made a point of like looking very closely at the canoes to see if I could see any of the other like the expeditionary group that wasn't Holt or James, but I couldn't see them at all. So
Yeah,
I think they also
and
imply
I
that the
mean
dogs have been killed
it
because there have been two like
oh,
scruffy dogs which I don't see during these scenes. I actually don't know if they hauled them up the.
that got dark really fast.
Did they haul them up the mountains? I saw them with harnesses, but I didn't see them up on the mountains.
Yeah, I think so, or maybe not, because I remember one of the scenes where they're like,
Either way, anyone that was remaining in expedition is dead, other than the white people and Africa, I suppose. But
yeah,
so yeah, they arrive at the. Yeah, they get captured after Jane reunites with them. Actually, I forgot to mention that Jane reunites with them. They end up chasing off Tarzan, who tries to going with them, with one of the chimpanzees around his chest. I don't know why he took the chimpanzee with him.
hmm
Uh, Chimp
yeah,
shield.
bullet fodder.
Yeah, bullet fodder. I was just about to say that. I'm pretty sure these chimpanzees raised him, but
Back to like the idea that there's no African tribesmen with him. I like the idea that the African tribesmen were like, yeah, we'll lead you to this ivory boneyard and then take all your money and then feed you to cannibals. And I mean, good for them.
yeah, it's not unheard of. Maybe not exactly what you said, but it's not unheard of for them just to take these people for rides.
I mean, justifiably, they should get their own sometimes, right? And if some colonial white men have to,
There are people that like think there are dinosaurs in like certain river basins in Africa, and they'll go to Africa and say, "Hey, can you show me if you've seen one of these?" And some guys will just like say, "Yeah, sure," and like take them into the river and just like, oh well, I guess we didn't see one. Better try next year. That'll be $2,000. That's a thing. They run these guys for a scam real well.
Yeah, but like it would be the equivalent of doing like going into a riverbank and being like, yeah, we'll help you find these dinosaur bones, and then they lead them into a group of hippos, and the hippos just kind of eat the white people that are dumb enough to be like, nowadays that's just murder.
So yeah, they've all been captured. Africa's at this camp. The main big evil guy is a guy called the Ivory King. He's a big painted man with a harem. He's apparently trying to take Jane as a wife, or like wife quotation marks. I'm not sure what the cultural semantics of this are, but so they like strip Jane naked and have her cleaned and then painted. Scenes which both seem to take way longer than they should. Like they spend a lot of time cleaning her and then a lot of time like painting her extra, even though she's already fully painted at the beginning of the scene where they start that, which just
Hmm.
seems like an oversight. Yeah, this is a pretty traumatic scene, actually. It's probably not really well suited to this weird semi pornographic angle they kind of want to go with sometimes. James tries to take Jane's mind off it by telling her to like not be in her body, so that the Ivory King can't really do things to her, which I think he's trying to be comforting. I don't know about how well like any of this advice would work in like a real scenario. I don't know the ethics of it, but he tries telling her a story to get her mind off it. It's kind of rough. James tries to makes a jump at the Ivory King, which fails, and then the Ivory King stabs him with a elephant tusk, mortally wounding him. In the meantime, Tarzan shows up with a herd of elephants that don't do anything. He just wanders them up to the perimeter of the village and then runs up on his own, pushing a bunch of the a bunch of the tribes people out of the way. He jumps on the Ivory King. They have a really dumb slow motion fight that only consists of like three moves. Ivory King puts Tarzan in a bear hug. Tarzan eventually gets a big swing at Ivory King to get him out of the hug. Tarzan eventually they struggle a bit, and then Tarzan gets a chokehold on the Ivory King, at which point he snaps the Ivory King's neck. This is a 3.5 minute long scene, which is really slow motion and painful, and is shot from like wide angles for the most part. Especially the bear hug scene, which is really inexcusable, which is shot from this wide angle where you just like see him like try to wind up for a hit and then fail because he's in too much pain and then do it again and again. That could have been done decently with some like decent close-up shots. And during this, they like cut away to the onlookers who are all in regular speed. So it's really weird looking.
Hmm.
So yeah, they he kills the Ivory King. Jane goes over to James, and James gives her his dying speech. He admires her and the adventure she's going to go on, and she goes away with Tarzan and tells Holt to tell James's country club or whatever about what happened. At this point, they are married by an orangutan. It just seems like they're wandered back into the grove with the orangutan leading him. And it seems like the orangutan is like the chief in this scenario, is like the priest in this scenario. So I'm just assuming the orangutan married them. And then they clean up and get some of the paint off them from the fight. And then they cut to credits where they play around half naked with the orangutan. Jane at this
Yes.
point is now walking around in a loincloth and nothing else. And yeah, the credits is just her, Tarzan, and the orangutan playing around. The orangutan grabs Bo Derek's butt a lot, which is a little bit weird. Yeah, and that's the movie.
It was a movie.
Yeah, yeah. I think we said a lot about it. It's pretty shit. I don't have much. I don't have anything positive to say about it, really.
No, not.
Yeah, no,
I
the
don't think there's
fights.
anything really positive to say about it.
Like I said at the beginning, the only positive thing I can say about it is that you get to see a lot of Bo Derek naked, which is not something I'm going to give this movie points for, just out of principle. Because you could do that and have a better movie. So doesn't make the
Hmm.
movie good. Yeah. What do you give the movie, Cody?
I don't know, like a 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 1 2.
There's not any really like
No.
saving grace for it.
Yeah, no. What's a good
Um,
scene in this
I
movie?
mean, any scene with animals in it,
I guess some of the animals are all right.
that's arguably the best part of the movie. It's just the occasional look at like a chimpanzee doing chimpanzee stuff that is not necessarily like they brought in a chimpanzee and all of a sudden it takes all focus off of anything else going on the camera because it's a chimpanzee and they're more exciting than any of the characters within this
Like I said, that cute scene where Tarzan is kind of like being followed around by the one chimpanzee who's mimicking his way of walking. And there's also a scene I think where one of the chimpanzee reports to Tarzan about like the expeditionary force getting kidnapped, even though Tarzan was there moments before they got kidnapped and did nothing, which is another plot hole I didn't mention. Yeah, Tarzan's a bit of an asshole in this. I mean, other than him, even if
sure.
you ignore him being really rapey, which like you cut 2 scenes out of this movie and he's not nearly as bad.
Yeah, also that's another argument that I have to make is there's a lot of cutaway scenes that just kind of don't really need to be there. I can't really think of one off the top of my head. For example, like the opening scene where Bo Derek just randomly shoots somebody, title sequence, and then it's all of a sudden it's like Bo Derek's somewhere else in the world and doing other things.
They don't use that to
Like,
characterize her at
what
all.
was the purpose of that?
Yeah, no, like you'd presume, like
No,
watching, like going into it, you'd presume that's like evidence that, like, oh, she's like willing to shoot people, but not really. She doesn't utilize that anything else. She doesn't contribute to fighting the final battle at all. She's pretty helpless in that, even though it's her story. Like, yeah, this is her story, and she doesn't participate at all in the climax. She's very inactive after like the first 10 minutes.
I think when we need to talk about this, I think we have to go back to the old Bechdel test. Do you think this would pass the Bechdel test?
No, because her and Africa don't talk.
For do they not?
Because those are the only 2 female characters.
Okay, well then there you go. It's female-driven stories written by two white people,
Two
two white
like
men. I'm
yeah,
assuming.
like what? She doesn't have any conversations to have with let alone like an awkward conversation with her. For all intents and purposes, her stepmom. I don't know that her like Africa and James were like formally together, but yeah, kind of. It's her mom. It's her dad's boyfriend or girlfriend. So at least there should be some conversation, but they don't talk at all. Which is like again, this movie has a problem with not letting its African characters speak. Yeah, no, it's yeah, like and yeah, I don't know. There's much there. It's
So you said you read majority or at least some of the. Well, I'm just gonna go out and on a limb here and say it doesn't follow a lot of its original source material.
no.
Anyways, to tie that back into the sub theme.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about that. Yeah, no, it doesn't follow any of the stuff in the book. I
Sure.
don't even recall that I don't recall what the ending of the book really is. I mean, that's also like like the ending of the book is more like Tarzan going to Jane. Like it's him trying to reconnect with Jane, even though they don't talk too much in the books. They have like a couple moments where they like languagelessly stare at each other for a bit, but that's just the moment. That's the climax of the book where these two kind of reconnect, and this doesn't really have that. And yeah, I guess they kind of adapt the cannibalistic tribe from the first one, but I get it's only like aesthetically similar. It's like, okay, these are also like a tribe of Africans that are antagonistic toward the protagonists. That's not terribly specific. I think they might have been painted in the book, but I don't know if there was like a ton of detail on that. Yeah, no, there's not much. Yeah, Holt's a creation of some of the
I,
movies, so he's not in the book. And the expeditionary crew is like much smaller in the novel. It's just like William or Clayton, Archimedes, and Jane, and like maybe, and I guess their maid, and maybe like a few other people who are like sailors and whatnot. Because this is like it's actually like a very seaside. It's the area portrayed in the book is meant to be coastal vaguely. I think they're a bit inland, but it's coastal because that's where Tarzan's like family crash landed or was mutant, or actually in the original they were just like marooned there, I believe.
that's not very nice.
Well, there was a mutiny. Anyway, yeah, no, it's not a very. It doesn't make good use of the source material, really. Which I encourage people to change. Like, don't do the book. A lot of these classic novels don't have like traditional senses of pacing and whatnot, because that's something that wasn't really hard and fast developed yet. Like even like that's kind of we forget that like pacing is kind of a modern invention. Like that's gonna come out as blasphemy to some
Yeah.
people, but like outside of Shakespeare, a lot of stuff isn't really well paced.
And I mean that says a lot because Shakespeare's a playwright. He's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and
He
that's
doesn't write
mostly because
books. He
yeah,
writes plays, right?
yeah. And I think that's kind of why, because he's in a medium where you have like a finite amount of time where you can keep people sitting in a Shakespeare play when like still expecting people to stay in. But yeah, it doesn't make use of too much. Doesn't again, it didn't use any of Tarzan's backstory in the plot. He's just like a random guy in the forest who doesn't speak English. She can like intuit a few things from there, but there's no way to like intuit that the rest of his backstory.
And I think that with that being said, that might be even have been I don't know. Maybe we've both given a movie a one,
Yeah.
like both of us, but I think that might be, at least from my knowledge, that I can't think of any point in time that we've both been like, yeah, we're gonna give this a one out of nothing. And I mean, I'm being pretty generous on that one.
Yeah. No, like to give it like a 0 would be like it has to be like a non-functional film for me. But like you've like we've had episodes where like I gave it like a 2 or a 3 and you gave it like a negatives. That's been a thing.
Have I ever given something a negative?
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of the Around the World in 80 Days review where I gave it a 2 and Victoria gave it like negative infinite.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't think I've always been like even right now, like that one is up there for like very dumb reasons. As I said before, animals. It's like the only reason why that's even.
But no, 1's generally the lowest I'll give a movie. I'd have to like watch something like completely non-functional to give it a 0. Anyway, so yeah, next month we're doing just some assorted stuff. I think we're doing In the Name of the King and Machete. I don't know in what order. Up to you, really.
Let's do into the Name of the King
Okay,
next.
yeah, sure. Yeah, In the Name of the King, it's a new Bull movie. It stars Jason Statham.
It's been a while since we've done a fantasy.
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook and Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast. Check out the YouTube if you're not already watching it. We're working on getting all the episodes up there. It'll take some time. It's probably going to happen over the course of like a few, 2-3 months, because I can feasible like if I have all the time I can manage, I can get one out. We can get one out a day, but scheduling conflicts and whatnot. But yeah, some of the older episodes will get like a brief remastering. Not all of them, but eventually that won't need to be done as much. I did a little bit of work on Predator 2 here. That's the next one that I'm putting up as of recording. But so yeah, you guys can see us next month when we review In the Name of the King and some other stuff as it comes out. All right. See you guys next week.